Welcome to the Upstate CFO Council. This organization was founded in 2019 by Robert Bendetti in order to provide a networking and educational forum for senior financial executives to share best practices, to discuss current financial issues, and to learn about current topics related to the performance of their job.
Ivan, good morning. How are you doing, sir?
Good morning, Robert. I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you so much for doing this. This is fantastic, getting to meet virtually, and I think this is a fun way for the members to get to meet each other and learn a little bit more about each other and all of us. So this is fun. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you.
Ivan Chirolla is the finance manager at Seal Air Corporation. And Ivan, I think you got your undergraduate at the University of, is it Windsor?
Yes.
And an MBA in accounting at Wayne State University?
Yes.
You are a CGMA and a CPA in both South Carolina and Kentucky because you're an overachiever?
That's right.
And then a little thing I think I found out about you is you are super into Scouts and as an adult leader, and you've got some boys that went through Scouts, I think an Eagle Scout and somebody on their way to the Eagle Scout journey. Is that correct?
That is right.
Well, it is an honor. We have that in common. Thank you for your service to the young men and women in your community. And let's get into it. Question number one is, what is your favorite business book and why?
Well, let me put it this way. I typically read books and subjects 2 at a time. So I actually brought my copy of The Goal. Years ago, when I was in grad school, we actually attended a session by Dr. Goldblatt on the theory of constraints and lean manufacturing. He actually signed my book, so it's pretty cool. I know.
Nice. Wow.
So it's kind of interesting because I really like the way he wrote the book, not only from the lean manufacturing and theory of constraints concept, but also the way he was kind of showing the struggles from a controller, right? I've been a controller for many years, and manufacturing, it's always interesting, right? So looking at all the struggles that he had and the stresses of the job, right? Yep. So the way he put it together from a kind of like a family perspective, the scouting troop. And it's hilarious because years later, I actually became more involved as an adult leader in scouting. And it's hilarious because with some of the tougher hikes that we did with high elevation and all that, we actually used some of the concepts to move some of the weight around from some scouts, put some of the slower ones at the front so that we can all keep moving at a decent pace and keep the flow going. So it was very interesting to apply those concepts. And years later, as I was doing more lean manufacturing in an automotive setting, we actually had a lot of discussions on the Toyota way and implemented a lot of those concepts to review things like logistics, making sure that we had the right costs and loads to bring materials out of Europe and kind of reduce some of those costs. So it's kind of interesting how multiple books a lot of times give you very good ideas on different concepts. So that's why I linked the two of them together.
Amen. And I was just going to ask you if you think of that book every time you're hiking.
A lot of times I do. It's kind of weird. It's only for us accountants that we kind of get into that, but it is, I do think about that. And sometimes when we're struggling and we have a big gap between multiple people hiking, we try to switch it up and bring the slowest person to the front. So yes, I do think about it a lot of times.
Ivan, question number two, which is, what is the best advice that you've ever received?
Well, it's kind of interesting because this is advice that keeps coming up. It's the whole concept of listen more than you talk. And it's kind of interesting because you see it through the Hamilton musical. Things like my parents growing up, hey, listen more, talk less. And in business meetings, a lot of times you see how as people learn to listen a little bit more, you can eliminate some of the confrontation that doesn't need to happen if people just listened a little bit more, just for just a little bit longer, and then provided their opinion. Sometimes it's just a matter of waiting for the other person to express one more thought for one more minute, and then you pretty much get the answer that sometimes people are just too eager to jump in. So that's good advice.
Ivan, question number three is, what is a tool that you've recently started using or a habit you've recently picked up that you have found beneficial?
Well, for me, it's kind of interesting because it's not a new tool,
Hmm.
but it's a tool that I have used regularly. And to me, that tool is sharing information.
Hmm.
So a lot of times, especially with some of the projects I have been involved with throughout my career and now still, is the concept of putting information on a shared drive or sending the information to multiple plants or locations. And sometimes putting work instructions, processes in shared drives is what really helps people to understand their jobs. You have new controllers coming in or new logistics people coming into certain roles and they want to understand different processes. Sometimes being able to point them to a document that gives them tips or resources or way to do transactions in a system like SAP, that's valuable for them. So it's kind of like taking all that information that in many cases is out there, it's just not visible to some, and sharing that information, man, that helps a lot of people.
Amen, brother. That's good. You're bringing it today. Question number 4, which is, what's your favorite part of your current job?
You know, when you sent me that question, I thought about it and I started thinking, well, you know what? It's pretty similar to the answer I just gave to number 3. The latest project that I'm working on is working on inventory accuracy for many locations in North America. And the whole concept is sharing that information, having discussions with various clients and telling them, hey, this is kind of like the standard process. These are the best tips and tricks. This is the best way we can show accurate inventory numbers for very large inventory dollars throughout North American locations. So it's kind of like sharing that information with different people. And sometimes when a person who's new at their role says, oh man, thank you, I didn't know that, or that helps me out a lot, it really is satisfying.
That's a good point too about that mentorship you can bring to others. You know, we've all had somebody who kind of fed into us, and Ivan, I think I can tell you're the kind of person that feeds into others, and to pull the new guy or gal under your wing, I think is really important. So, amen. Great advice. Question number 5 is, what's something personal you wouldn't mind sharing with other members of the CFO Council?
For me, it's really the importance of family. So my wife and I, we have 4 children, 3 boys and a girl, and kind of keeping that in perspective, right? We all have very busy schedules, but making time for family, quality time, even with the demanding schedules and all the changes that are going on with some people working remotely, some people doing school from home, all those things, just making the time to keep those quality family times intact. It helps.
Absolutely. That is so key, so important. Question number 6, last question. It happened so fast. What's something that I didn't ask that I should have? And what's your answer to that?
You know, that's another good question. And I thought in terms of what are habits and routines that you do?
Yeah.
And I thought about that concept. And to me, morning routines, especially kind of like as the day is starting before everybody else wakes up, having those to kind of like feed the spirit, the kind of like the spiritual side, and kind of like a little bit of a workout routine. It doesn't have to be a long one, but just something that keeps you active and gets your brain going and
Hmm.
gets your mind going for the day, and a little bit of planning. Those things are critical. And sometimes in an ideal world they happen every day, but schedules change. Sometimes you're busy, whatever, but trying to do those routines as consistently as possible will really help out.
Ivan, I'm noticing a theme here. I heard family, friends, faith, fitness, and all that in a big stew of what makes up Ivan. And this was great. It was great to learn more about you. And I really appreciate you feeding in to me and the other members and letting us learn a little bit about you and your life and your professional journey. So thank you.
Thank you, Robert.